Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of In the Crease. You guys have been waiting for us to get back on air, and here we are. There are some interesting things happening in the world of hockey today, and I think the first thing we got to do is dip right into our mailbag because, boy, we started a plethora of a firestorm on the last show when you lost total control and started screaming and yelling at the camera, and people were flooding the Facebook
Screaming
page.
and yelling at the camera.
Absolutely.
I was right. You're the one that sat there and
well,
started it.
Let's see how the people... one of the points that we mentioned was the shortened season. And you had made the comment that you thought a shortened season would be beneficial. You thought, say, between a 60 and a 65 game season,
Excitement
would be a lot better than going up to the 85 game season here. Well, first off, we heard from our old friend Carrick Davis.
Who?
Over in Finland, the Finnish man.
Are you going to read it in Finland then?
No, I'm not, because he wrote it in English. If he had written it in Finnish, I would have.
Okay.
He said 60 games. So he's agreeing with you. 82 is already too hard. Guys are too fatigued and the quality of the game suffers. Keep it at 60 and more rinks are full. Guys are more rested and the game is more exciting. In my opinion, there should be a 64 to 74 games. 60 might be too much of a drop-off. Adding more is an awful idea. The human body can only handle so much. This from a kid who's playing all the time, so, I mean, he should know what his limitations are. So, not a bad response from Carrick Davis. Christine came in. Christine Lamana.
Who's a goalie?
Tried to play.
She's a goalie.
But she tried to play diplomat here. She said, I can see the benefits to both sides, but I have to say a longer season would be better. If the fans, of course, we want to see more hockey, and B, because I think making sure the teams get a chance to play the other teams makes the sport more interesting. You know, the other day, the Pens played the Flyers. And I understand that they lost simply because you ran out of sauce.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm very upset.
I know you are.
Very disgruntled right now.
Off camera on the last show, I brought in a nice vat of sauce and I gave it to Bob. And it's ironic, but every time Bob has some sauce,
they go on a roll.
The Flyers go on a roll, and he's out of sauce, and you see what they've been tanking and everything. But this is a perfect thing because the Flyers were playing the Pens again, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm, you know, how many times have I seen these two teams play already? I'm bored. I didn't even want to. It was. I kept flipping between the other games.
Wait, hold on a minute, Fior. So you're telling me, how long have you been married now?
Oh, a long time. I think since I was born.
Okay, so you're telling me your wife is now boring. Is that what you're saying
what
on the air?
What does that have to do with the Flyers?
Your wife is boring.
This is exactly...
Wait a minute here.
You argue like Dave argues before this.
That's
not what I'm saying.
That's what you're saying.
I didn't bring up
the Penguins Flyers is not exciting. You're saying that's like spending the rest of your life with your wife and you're bored of her.
Am I on the Flyers?
Is that what you're saying?
Am I on the Flyers?
Is that what
Am
you're
I
saying?
on the Penguins? I make anything exciting.
Is that what you're saying?
So put nail in that
is that what
coffin
you're
right
saying?
there. I'm saying that I don't want to see
exactly
these teams play all these times. It's just boring. So you get to flip through the dials and watch the other games. Thankfully, I have three or four other games a week.
Are you a hockey fan or are you a Penguins fan?
I am a hockey fan.
Then you don't mind watching the other games.
No, I don't mind watching.
And if you had a shortened season, you wouldn't have to worry about watching the Flyers Penguins 50 million times.
Let's see what Josh Lawfer says. Josh Lawfer says, I think shrinking the season down to 62 to 66 game schedule would be ideal. Right now, we're seeing just how important every game is in the truncated schedule. Slow starts to the season could very well be too much to make up and cause playoff teams on the outside to be on the outside looking in. Last year's Cup winners are a good example of this. Regarding a team's opponents for the season, I would say 4 games per division opponent. Then, for the remaining teams in the conference and in the other conference, simple home-and-home series so teams can play every other team in the league twice. That's exactly the point I made. Add that all up, and that comes out to 66-game schedule. Games can be spaced out a bit more from October to April to allow players to be fresher for the playoffs. This would be a win-win situation for everybody. And once again, I will say, I'm watching the Flyers and the Penguins, and I'm thinking, gee, wouldn't it be great to see the Penguins, who are not having a bad year, play Chicago, who's having a stellar year. Or wouldn't it be great to see them play L.A., the defending Stanley Cup champs? We're not seeing any of that.
Why do you care? You're going to see them in the Cup if they're the best team.
Because they shouldn't wait until the Cup to see these teams come in and play.
So you'd rather watch a meaningless regular season game instead of something with something on the line?
I would rather see a nice schedule. And I think that this whole thing was summed up really nice by Josh Baer. Josh Baer said, first off, go back to the original names: Patrick, Norris, Smythe, and Adams.
Nope.
I kind of agree with him on that.
Yeah, no kidding.
I kind of agree with him on that.
You dropped the ball on that, Beckman.
Yeah, I think I'm with Josh 100% on this. If you want, still aligned by geography, but go back to the original names. I mean, the Atlantic is the old Patrick division, minus the Caps. Increase those divisions and conference games, and then do a home-and-home game outside the conference. Just figure it a way to make 82 games. And I think that's a pretty good compromise that Josh Baer came up to. He wants to keep the 82 games, but at least he's getting into the part where, these teams are playing each other.
Isn't
and you
hockey
don't
so traditional? Right? Hockey's a traditional sport.
The teams had to play each other an awful lot of times because at one time there was only 6 teams in a league.
Correct.
So, I mean, is that what you want to go back to?
That's
6 teams in the league?
That's when you were in college.
Huh? Is that what you want to go back to? 6 teams
absolutely.
in the league? Yeah, there you go. Wow.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know you like the Flyers. I don't mind watching the Flyers. I don't want to see them 9,000 times.
No, what I'm saying
I really don't.
The product's watered down.
Well,
so obviously,
I think
the amount of games is the situation that we're dealing with here. And it'll never happen because the NHL wants more money. They want to rob you of more money. Just like, they're giving you perks to go watch their product because they had to get rid of the food, for example, like we talked about last time we were on this show. So the NHL will never take away games off the table because that's taking money out of their own pocket. But they will add games to raise your ticket prices, to raise your souvenir prices, to raise everything at the arena.
That's fine. Just so they have a schedule where they're playing all the teams together.
And why can't
That's what they want to do.
Why can't they be like the NFL?
And?
Well, the
rotate
NFL
the divisions to play according to the way they said. Well, that's not bad, but you got to remember that the NFL is dealing with a very short schedule. They're dealing with 16 games.
Why can't they do
even though they're talking about going to 18?
Why can't they do what the soccer does?
Well, nobody pays attention to soccer. It's not a sport. It's a pastime.
No, but
it's a
why
hobby.
Don't they
it's to let little kids run around. That's all it is.
Why don't they shift the stronger 2 teams and the weaker 2 teams?
Why don't they do like they do in soccer all the time and have riots and kill 74 people, and then when the judge acquits people, go out and riot some more?
If the guy doesn't stop the soccer ball, maybe he should be kicked in the head a little bit.
Maybe Jonathan Quick, instead of saying, hey, that was your guy, should just haul off and just clock that guy.
What's wrong with that? Say it like it's a bad thing. Say it like it's wrong.
So the bottom line here is they still need to be, I think anyway, they still need to be playing these other teams. We're missing way too much. I've seen the Flyers too much. To be honest with you, I'm on the verge of seeing the Capitals too much. And I think when the playoff time comes, this is going to be a total shamble because none of the teams in the East have played any of the teams in the West. Vice versa.
And it's going to be exciting.
No, it's not. It's going to be a mess.
It's going to be like that
it's going to be a mess.
It's going to be like that first kiss.
Like I told you before, after the show was over, and we were talking before the show started, Pittsburgh played Detroit in the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row. That's almost unheard of. I mean, that's going all the way back to the heyday of the Canadiens. But you had 2 teams played each other tight in Stanley Cups. Have they played each other?
No.
When's the last time Detroit's been to town? Or better yet, when's the last time the Pens have gone to Detroit?
What's the see Detroit now? They don't have Lindstrom. Who cares?
You have a possibility of making a great rivalry, and this goof Bettman is letting it all go away because, frankly, he can't.
There's no rivalry left in hockey.
I don't agree with that.
None.
I don't agree with that.
None.
At all.
It's so watered down, there is no rivalry.
Why would you say that?
Because there is no rivalries left.
So
the teams don't get up for a regular season game because it's 82 games. It's meaningless.
Well, then if there's no rivalry, why do we have to play the Flyers 9,000 times?
Because they're the closest team in the NHL.
Oh,
the owners don't want to give money to travel.
Buffalo's closer than they are. We should have a big thing going on with Buffalo then.
And you did. You played in the Winter Classic against Buffalo.
Brian Jeffrey Gross. Do you know this guy?
I don't know. Do I?
I don't know. He contacted us on Facebook, and he talked a little bit about this. He said, fans want to see exciting hockey. which, in my opinion, is rivalries. Cross-conference games are more of a formality than anything else. So he's agreeing with you 100%.
Of course, all these people are.
Why muddy the schedule with almost meaningless games? They don't affect conference standings like division games do, and nobody likes a 3-hour time difference from California to go play a boring game against New Jersey neutral trap zone. In any case, the Cup final goes well into at least May, if not June, so I don't think more games would be the answer. So basically what Brian's trying to say is he agrees with you. You should play in between your conference, and then you can meet the West Coast teams if you want in the
if they're good enough to make it.
And you know, and I just think, and I answered Brian, and this is one thing that I was trying to tell you guys all last time. You know, you're talking about more than one kind of business here. You're not talking about just the business of the NHL. You are also talking about the business of television. And why is that important? Ladies and gentlemen, that's important because most of the TV revenue is what prompts the league. It's what spurs the league. Sure, they make money from stadium sales and what have you, but that doesn't come anywhere close, for example, to what NBC was paying the National Hockey League to do this. So as I explained to Brian, and now I will explain to you, and even to Bob, though, you know, in one ear, out the other ear, the numbers just don't plain merit doing that. The Pens versus Cap game, which should be one of the biggest conference rivalries, you have Alexander Ovechkin,
who's
one of the best players in the league, and now you have Sidney Crosby, one of the best players in the league, going head-to-head when these two teams meet. So you pit the two best, arguably the two best players in the league against one another.
In whose eyes?
And when it played, that game saw 397,000 viewers. Now, I rounded that number.
Wait, hold on a minute here. How can you... Ovi isn't even the top 10 player in the league anymore.
Look, I'm not even talking about Ovi now because you're following Liam McHugh right now. McHugh and all those cronies in the NHL pick apart Ovechkin's play like he's under some kind of microscope. Meanwhile, if I'm starting a team, he's one of the first guys I'm adding.
Pittsburgh,
that good.
Pittsburgh would be a better game
now,
than
don't
Washington.
Try to deflect this. I know this. This is the art of war. This is Sun Tzu. You're deflecting. I'm talking about numbers, and you want to go off on a tangent on Ovechkin. Forget about who the better matchups are.
Be a better matchup
the bottom line
Crosby.
is you got the two big guys that Bettman's pushing, Ovechkin and Crosby, and you're pulling in slightly under 397,000 viewers.
That's because Ovi ain't pulling his weight. No one wants to see him.
We get that many viewers. Between the internet and this show here, we get 397 viewers.
Because we're not Crosby and Ovechkin. We're better.
The game of Pens versus the Caps was beaten in the ratings by over 1,000 viewers by WWE SmackDown on Friday night over on the Sci-Fi Channel, a channel that only sci-fi people really turn into. Now, let me explain to you why this is important. The WWE has a monster show on Monday nights called Raw. It's live and it pulls in all kind of great numbers for them. This show that's on Friday is taped. It's taped Tuesday night after the Raw show, edited down into a nice format, and then it airs on Friday. So the Pens-Caps game, which was live, was beaten out in viewer ratings, not by another live wrestling show. It's not wrestling versus hockey. No, it was beaten out by a pre-recorded, taped program stuck back on the Sci-Fi Channel.
So you're saying they should put Rock and Triple H on skates? Is that what you're telling me?
This market is basically too small. You know, you're talking about Pittsburgh and Washington. You got a lot of people watching this on the East Coast. You don't have a lot of people watching it as soon as you cross the Mississippi.
Look how small Washington is.
If you want the entire nation to get wrapped up in the hockey fever, you cannot pinpoint these sectional little rivalries and play them to death. You've got to expand, let your teams play all across the nation,
let's talk
and that
about
gets
expansion.
Everybody involved.
Let's talk about expansion. Now, how did Phoenix work? How did Atlanta work? Let's talk about expansion.
See, here he goes again. Classic deflection. Not expansion of the league. Expansion of the schedule. Now,
man.
You got a team like Chicago.
I want to play Florida 50 million times.
Yeah.
I want to play.
You don't want to play any team 50 million times. God, you're like talking to this table.
Jeez.
You know, you're like the typical Pittsburgh fans. You probably sit there and like Snyder.
How come you got Russian ruble in your pocket? Is Ovi paying you to?
To plug them up?
Plug them
I
up
wish he
there.
was.
There's some rubles coming out of your pocket. Jeez.
What I could do with Russian rubles.
Huh?
What you want to keep in mind is that you need to expand the audience, expand the net. It's not just a little thing here and a little thing here. Hell, you can have Boston play Montreal forever, and probably the people in Boston and Montreal would go gaga over that.
Jeez.
But nobody else is going to be interested. And people are going to be turning on the TV, and they're going to say, "Oh, look, it's the Habs and the Bruins again. Screw that! I'm watching something else." And it's exactly what's happening with the NHL now. Wow. That's why the numbers aren't coming up as strong as everybody hoped. The Chicago Blackhawks went on an amazing streak.
Luck.
Doesn't matter what it was. I don't care what it was. They went on an amazing streak that ended just recently. Now,
it ended a while ago.
At the time the Hawks were on that streak, wouldn't it have been great if they'd have crossed paths with the Pens?
No.
It would have been.
No.
It would have been, because now you got a strong team, and you sit back and you go, whoa, maybe the Chicago team is for real. Or if the Pens win, then you say, you know what? They're getting all that because they're playing against the weak teams in the West.
Did Edmonton beat Chicago?
They did just the other night. You're absolutely right. And it doesn't even have to be the Pens. Why couldn't Chicago play Boston? Boston's having a pretty decent year.
Boston.
Why couldn't Chicago come up against Boston?
The Goons.
Yeah.
The guys that can't even beat Montreal.
Nobody from the West, nobody from the East got to go up against Chicago during that streak.
That's the way it should be.
That's the way hockey is.
National League, American League.
That's the way things go. And you know what? Before we get too far into this, I should point out that our show and all of our rantings are sponsored by Play It Again Sports. And the only reason I bring this up now is because Josh Baer, who came back and I think came up with one of the best ideas at all.
Did he agree with me?
Go on back. No, he didn't.
Then it wasn't a good suggestion.
It was a great suggestion. And he's a goalie who actually could play. So, and he came back with the names of the Patrick, the Norris, the Smythe division. He wants to go back to that.
Right, I think what do you got against Adams?
Adams division. That's where the Bruins
What, their family ain't paying you either?
So that's where I think
the Montreal Canadiens played, right? When they dominated the league.
No, that's where the Bruins played. I don't think
that's where the Canadiens played.
They were in the I don't think so. I think it was Buffalo, Boston, Toronto. Montreal. I don't think Montreal was in that.
Montreal.
You better check that. I'm not sure about that. I think they were in the other division.
Montreal.
I don't think so.
You just forget about it because
I think they were in the Patrick division.
No.
Check it all out, and Josh, you are our winner. And I'll tell you what, I actually got the prize here today. Bob, you're going to have to help me with this because I really don't know. What I did here, Josh, is I got you an extra large shirt. Here we go. Can we see that? What camera do you want me to play that to, Dave? There you go. What is that design? Do you have any idea?
Hockey Joker, it's called. A Joker Beast.
A Joker Beast. Okay, so there it is. It's a Mission Hockey, a Joker Beast. And I tell you what I did here, Josh. I got you an extra large for you, and then I know you got some little ones at home, or maybe and I got you a small, too, to go with it, so you can team those up. All right, so you got yourself an extra large, you got yourself a small, and what we're going to do is put this in a nice bag for you. We'll leave it here at the studio. And whenever you're in the Bethel Park area, please stop by. Pick these up. They'll be waiting for you. I'll fold them up nice and neat before I put them away for you. And congratulations for winning. We picked your name out of the goalie helmet before we went on air, and you're our winner. Now, we probably should explain to the fine folks about Play It Again Sports and why they're sponsoring the show and all that good stuff.
They only Play It Again in Western PA. Your number one hockey, lacrosse, baseball, golf, football. Trade up, trade in, get great value on your gear. We have everything out there from exercise to hockey to lacrosse. It's a great store. And it's very close to Pittsburgh. Right on Route 30, number 724-834-1121. Give us a call.
And we do want to mention one other person in our mailbag. We got some communication going from Nancy McNamara Marcotte. I know you don't know her.
She's from Canada, eh?
She is from Canada. She said, nice to hear my friends from Pittsburgh, whom I connected with on Facebook. She said that Polly, your friend Polly, referred her to the page. She went there, she checked it out, and she watched the show. She said she's from Sid's hometown of Halifax.
That's Nova Scotia.
She said... She says, great show. Love your shout out to Theo. This was the interview we did with Theo Fleury. Was always a fan of his, even during his hard times. So, Nancy,
which was his whole career.
Some people wish they had his career.
But he gets it.
That's right. Some people wish they had his career. So that is our mailbag. We had a ton of it. And I want to thank everybody
Keep sending it out to us.
Yeah, let's explain to you how this goes, because the give back and forth not only leads to fine, excellent prizes that we give away on the show, thanks to our sponsor, but it also allows for a lot of interesting little tidbits back and forth, and it's nice to hear, so that the show becomes a little bit more active. We're going to
throw out another tidbit question for our internet lovers today.
And do you have that question?
Oh yeah, we're going to be talking about it right now.
Go ahead.
What are we going to tap into? We're going to tap into what? Conference realignment.
Realignment.
And what we want to hear from you folks is we want to hear who you want in your division, and you can name your division.
That's not a bad idea. I kind of like that idea too. Now, you probably have seen in the papers, they printed the strongest of the proposed realignments. They want to realign the teams. Obviously, something has to be done with Winnipeg.
Correct.
Obviously,
you know why they did it this way?
What you mean the way
why they did the alignment the way they did it so far? If there's a team that's going to be moving, like say for example, maybe one of the Florida teams or one of the Phoenix's team, there's options to move a shuffle one or two teams, just like Major League Baseball, just with the Houston Astros.
Okay.
So if there's a chance that Quebec comes into the league and one of the Florida teams comes in, it won't throw it off too much. They're just going to insert one and take one out or move it around. So they're only going to have to move one location instead of maybe moving 2 or 3 locations. That's why it's so important where they put Winnipeg right now. It's so important where they're putting Columbus right now, or Detroit or Washington, for example.
Well, we're going to have, Dave will be putting this up on the screen for you in graphic form. Here they have a Central Division. The Central Division, I don't understand. There are some strong East Coasts in the Central Division. Boston, you can't get any further east than Boston. They've got Montreal and Ottawa. Those are all East Coast teams, but they have them in a Central Division. And then they stick Tampa Bay in there, right? The Atlantic Division.
The reason why they stuck Tampa and Florida in the same division, besides them being, obviously right next to each other, in case one of those teams go to Quebec, now you got Quebec, Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa.
That would still be more Eastern than Central. But in the Atlantic Division, for example, that's where the Pens would be. They'd be in there with Washington, Philadelphia, both New York teams, Jersey, Columbus, Carolina. You get teams like the Island and the Rangers and Philly. Those are Eastern teams.
See, I feel bad. I feel bad for a team like the Islanders.
Because
they're an up-and-coming young team that, kind of reminds me a little bit of the Oilers.
Okay.
They'll never win that division. Never. I mean, you got Philadelphia, you got Pittsburgh, you got New Jersey, you got the Rangers. They all have a little bit more resources. Even though the Islanders will be playing in a new building going forward, which will up their revenue, they just can't compete with some of these. The way Pittsburgh runs their organization financially, they sell out every year. The Rangers, the money resources that they have, New Jersey seems to develop with, their GM. He knows what he's doing there.
Yeah.
And Philadelphia has deep pockets. And, there's not, you can forget about Carolina and even Washington to an extent, even though he's got deep pockets there. He puts his money into, Ovechkin corner. There's a lot of turnover there. He can't get a good coach. Look what he did. He traded all his good goaltending away.
Yeah.
I mean, Varlamov, why would you get rid of that guy? He's doing well in Colorado, and I think those divisions are so 3, 4, 5 teams deep that some of the smaller teams, it's going to be like baseball almost in alignment. That's why I'd rather see them go into 2 division. Okay, just have 2 divisions.
Well, that's what they have.
No, just 2 divisions general.
Through the whole league?
Through the whole league.
Oh.
And take the best 8 teams out of each division, and that's your playoff. Forget about who wins the division. If you win the division, you win the President Award in each division, you get home ice advantage through the whole playoffs. Everyone else, boom. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because to me, this is going to be so confusing going forward. Your matches ups aren't going to make any sense.
Well, the way they have this playoff system for this is the top 3 teams in each division would qualify for the playoffs.
And then 2 wild cards.
4 wild card teams.
2 in each division.
They're the best 2 from each division, right. And just to finish this out for you, over in the Western Conference, the Pacific Division, We'll have Dave plug this up for you. There's the teams in the Pacific Division: Anaheim, Calgary, Edmonton, LA, Phoenix, San Jose, and Vancouver. And then, same situation as there. You have some strong teams there that are always going to dominate. And then in the Midwest, what they're calling the Midwest Division: Chicago, Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota,
which to me is the weakest
Nashville,
division out of
Santa
the four.
Luigi.
In my opinion, that's the weakest division out of the four.
I don't know. I think you got some interesting teams in there.
I think you got a bunch of teams that are mediocre at best.
Uh-huh.
I would say, you're always going to have that Canadian rivalry. I mean, obviously, Florida and Tampa is going to struggle in that division with Montreal and Boston.
Sure.
Because Montreal has a very young team. Boston has a very physical team.
Yeah.
Ottawa is going to be there just because they're the stepchild. The stepbrother in the three Canadian teams up there, because Toronto is going to be pushing now harder than they ever had to push now because they got a rivalry with the other Canadian teams.
Sure.
Boston, you might as well consider them to be a Canadian team because they have that original six origin, which makes them really close to the Canadian hearts, And then you have...
Oh, boy, I don't know if I agree with you on that one.
Oh, I do.
Where the hell did you throw that idea
Well,
out?
because you think about it, Boston's one of the original sixes.
I understand that. So is Detroit, New York.
Correct. And a lot of the Canadian people that follow hockey that might not be a Habs fan or a Maple Leaf fan because they've been getting that thrown down their throat for 50 million years might have took a liking to the Red Wings.
Oh, I don't know if I'm buying that one at all. And I know London, Ontario is just a hop, skip, and a jump from Detroit, but no, I'm not buying that at all.
You'd be surprised how many Canadian, how many hockey fans in Canada that likes the original six teams.
I'm not saying that you can count those three teams as Canadian teams.
Okay,
that's
so
not
you're telling me like a province like, let's say, Nova Scotia,
yeah,
wouldn't root harder for Boston than maybe Montreal.
I think they're going to stick with the Canadian team.
I don't know.
I think they would even, if Quebec would get a team, they would be with Quebec. No, I'm not buying that one. I'm not buying that one at all. Anyway, that's the proposed realignment, and I think what Bob said is probably a good thing. If you have some ideas about that, it's going to be the main topic for our next show. We're going to talk about great ideas that folks came up with, who they like to see the divisions going, and how they'd like to see them broken up.
And then we're going to play.
There you go.
We're going to play during the playoffs around here. All our winners. We're going to have a winners bracket of all our fun festivals that played against Sports Gives Up. We're going to put you in a head-to-head matchup. We're going to give you a question, and we're going to take Josh and who else? Paulie Parker.
Do these things just come to
you? Hold on. And we're going to give you a question, and you gotta spill it, and we're going to play playoff elimination, and the winner of that will be our Stanley Cup championship for In the Crease. So, get your Facebooks.
He has no clue what he's talking about. Here's what we want you to do. We want to talk about realignment on the next show, what your opinions are. Give us your opinions. Give us, even if you have suggested names, better than the Central, Atlantic, Pacific, and Midwest divisions.
Yeah, the Fury division.
There you
Nelson
go.
Division,
I'm liking
the
this already.
Dave Cable division. That would be the weak division.
Yeah, we'll stick the Islanders in there. Now, before we get out of here, because we're fast running out of time, you wanted to mention a couple of the local guys?
Yeah, I just got this new Prospect magazine, top 50 players. Good old Gips, ranked 11. TJ Miller, ranked 38. 2 American kids, 2 kids from the local neighborhood. Don't get enough pub. John was ranked the number 1 goalie in the publication.
I thought that Russian kid was the number 1 goalie.
No, he's the number 1 goalie ranked.
Yeah.
Forget those Russians. You got too much vodka in your water. Ovi must have gave it to you.
You're prejudiced. That's all there is to it.
No, I'm not prejudiced. The real hockey players live in Pittsburgh.
There you go. Well, we are fast running out of time. We've screamed and yelled our way through another exciting episode. Next time we come back, we'll talk about realignment. And until that time, got to tell you, on behalf of Dave, who is really being a pain in the butt this episode, really just ragging about everything. And on behalf of Bob, who came really neat, Hartford Whaler, one of the best symbols in the NHL at all, I think. That and the Chicago Blackhawks, I think, best symbols. I'm Fiore, reminding you that when it comes to hockey, if you're in the game, you're in the crease.